Hey guys, Merry Christmas Eve. So I had absolutely no plans to be on Facebook at all for the next couple days, but on the way home from church, Tracy said, all I really want's an apple pie. You said you'd make me an apple pie, and of course I totally forgot. And actually, I'm not even sure I said that. But I said, well, you're gonna get a version of an apple pie because I only have 3 apples. And I wasn't 100% sure that all 3 apples were even still good, but they turned out, I think, okay. So y'all are gonna get to witness a totally fly by the seat of my pants apple pie. Now, because I don't have enough stuff, putting it in a pie dish isn't gonna work, so we're gonna totally wing it and see what we end up with. It may be a 2-person pie-ish thing, but I always say, you know, if you screw it up a little bit, then you just say it's rustic. It's fine. So anyway, I went ahead and peeled them for y'all, and this may be a long video. I don't know. We're gonna see how it goes. So log on, log off. It's fine. We're gonna cut them in half. I peeled them. I didn't core them or anything to do that. I'm just going to show y'all kind of how I do that a little bit. And the thing with apple pie, technically I know what all goes in the apple pie, so y'all get to kind of see that too. I don't really have a recipe per se, just because I don't have enough of the right ingredients, so even my recipe isn't necessarily going to work. So I do know what goes in it, so we're just going to wing it, and we're going to put this thing together and do the best we can, and that'll teach him to plan ahead, right? So slice them up pretty thin. I'm not going to get all technical because, again, it's rustic, right? So I'm going to just toss those into a bowl, and I'm just kind of coring as I go. And because it's a rustic thing, I'm not going to worry about my slices being all pretty and uniform and all that kind of good stuff. I'm just going to basically get this done, because not only did I not know about making the apple pie and having the stuff to do it, I don't have the time either, because I have to make several dozen cookies, and then we've got to make it to Christmas Eve service. Don't y'all love that Christmas Eve fell on Sunday? We are totally stoked about that. I always love it when Christmas falls and Sunday gets to kind of be part of that celebration. For one thing, of course, you know, it's all about Jesus and everything. And what better way to celebrate the birth of Jesus than with all of your friends who you may not normally get to see on Christmas. So we are going to keep doing this. And like I said, I'm just kind of coring this as I go. And this is a great tip just for any old time, really. This is an easy way to core an apple. Even if you're not making a pie, if you're just slicing it up to eat. Now, I didn't have, you know, a lot of people use Granny Smith apples in their pie. I never do that. I always use a sweet apple, and I know it's not really, you're not supposed to do that and all that kind of stuff, but my family has a big old sweet tooth, and quite frankly, we like our stuff pretty stinking sweet. So, I don't really like the tart apples in the pie. I would prefer a sweeter apple. So I had one just Red Delicious, and then I had 2 Fuji apples. And you can see these are not great big giant apples, but I recommend, I love, of course, the Honeycrisp, but the Fuji apples are even sweeter on the list than the Honeycrisp are. And I think that they do really well. They're firm, and I like a firm, crisp apple. So I will use sometimes a combination of Fuji or Honeycrisp or whatever it is I have on hand. And if I have a couple green apples or Granny Smith, you know, for my apple pie, I have done a mixture of sweet and tart apples in my pie, and that turned out actually pretty perfect, to tell you the truth. It's a good little combination of tart and sweet. So you might think about just switching it up a little bit. I mean, it's your pie, so who cares if you follow the rules, right? I don't know. Make it up as you go. It's fine. And like I said, some of these are thin. Usually really thin slices is what you're supposed to do. But, you know, again, oh well. It still tastes good, right? So I got to church this morning, and we got there a little bit early, and it was freezing. And I don't know about y'all, but here, the wind was blowing 90 miles an hour, and it was really cold, and it killed my allergies a little bit. So hopefully that'll kind of dissipate and warm up just a little bit. I'm kind of ready for summer. I know that's probably not what you're supposed to say on Christmas, but I am. So, okay, now I've got kind of an issue here. I'm going to show y'all. So this is not really flat, and it's kind of hard to cut, so it doesn't want to stand on end, and this end's, you know, wobbly. So what I'm going to do is flip it over, and I'm going to make it kind of flat and still good. And then I'm just going to do my little slices from here. So flat base makes easier, safer cutting. Same thing on this piece. I went as far as I could, felt comfortable with, and now I made myself a little flat piece. So safe, easy cutting. So, okay, that's all the apples I've got. So I'm kind of out of commission on that. You do use a little bit of lemon. Really, the lemon is just for keeping the apples from turning brown. So if you're cooking it right away, you don't necessarily have to do that. But I am going to go ahead and use just a little bit because I don't have a ton of apples. I don't need a ton of lemon either in there. So now I'm kind of done with this. It's going over here. All right. Oh, and y'all notice that I'm using my spinach containers. Sometimes I buy it in the bag, but most of the time I buy it in these containers because I like to save these and use them as my trash buckets. So all my apple peels are in here. The other thing is we're having steak for Christmas dinner. So I have another one of those, and I'm going to use that to marinate our steaks because then I can just toss the whole thing and it's no mess, no dishes. Hate dishes. Yay. Okay, bowl full of apples. Now, what do you add to it? Well, sugar. How much? I don't know. So I'm going to just guess. So this is a 2 teaspoon little hootie. And you're going to mix it up in there. And like I said, we like ours pretty sweet. So I'm going to do half of one. So this is about 3 tablespoons. I'm good with that. And then cinnamon. Of course, with a recipe, you know what to do, but this is nowhere close to what the recipe calls for. And so I'm going to just guess, and I love cinnamon, so we're going to put quite a bit of cinnamon in there. And this is my favorite. Tones. I get this at Sam's in this great big giant container. I love this brand. It tastes really, really yummy. So if you're not sure what kind of cinnamon to buy, get Tones. It's awesome. Or I guess that's how you say it. I don't know, it's how you spell it. So we're going with that. So I'm going to add some cinnamon, and you need some salt because anytime you bake something, you want a little salt to offset the sweet. It makes it taste better and sweeter, actually. So I don't know how much, so I'm going to add a pinch, maybe a pinch and a half, and nutmeg. So nutmeg can be kind of strong. I always suggest to smell your spices. If you're not sure, if you're like, I don't even know what nutmeg is. If you're not sure about it, smell it because that'll give you a really good indicator on whether you like the taste of it or not. So if it doesn't smell good to you, you're probably not going to like the taste of it. Nutmeg is very strong, so it's kind of like cloves. Very strong. And I'm not going to use a ton of it. And it's, I don't know, I'm going to just kind of, see, that's why you do that. You sprinkle it in your hand and not your bowl because it clumps up and it never, you know, does well. So I'm going to use a little bit of this, like a dusting, okay, in there. You don't really want to taste nutmeg. Nutmeg should be one of those spices that gives it an extra layer of flavor, but you can't really distinguish what it is. You never want to say, ooh, I taste nutmeg. Nah. So that's kind of how you know. Err on conservative side of nutmeg and cloves too, in my opinion. Okay, now to make it gooey and juicy and stuff and not just runny, you need to add a like flour. You can add cornstarch. I don't have cornstarch, but I have flour, so I'm going to add a little bit of flour to this. And what the flour does is it acts as a thickener, and it's like gravy. It makes your apple pie gravy. So add just a little bit of flour. Now I've got everything in here, and I need to mix that up. So, and you totally want to do this and let it kind of sit for a few minutes. And what it'll start to do is break down the apples just a little bit and make sure all the little apple babies are coated really well. And at this point, I'm going to kind of determine whether I think there's enough seasonings and sugar and flour that makes it look right, because I've made apple pie bazillion times with the recipe with all the right proportions, and I know what it's supposed to look like. So I'm just going to make it look kind of like that. And for me, I'm kind of thinking it looks about right. So I'm going to kind of show you guys. So it's not like a big soupy mess in here, right? But it's all my little slices are definitely coated in all that cinnamon sugar, yummy, yummy. So I say that's pretty good. Now let's work on the crust. All right. Now, judge me all you want, but I think you're either a really great baker or a really great cook. I don't think there's very many people who are both. I'm definitely not both. I learned to cook and stuff from my granny and some other people too, but my granny and my mom and my aunt, that side of my family, fabulous bakers. I didn't get that gene. I'm not terrible, but I'm definitely a cook, not a baker. So my job as a little girl at my granny's was to roll the pie crust. And so we made homemade pie crust. Guys, I'm not doing it. Not happening. I'm never canning again either. Not doing it. So, you know, they make really great pie crust now that you can buy at the grocery store. Ta-da. Totally doing that. I normally don't have pie crust in their freezer, but I did a photo shoot for the cookbook. And yeah, so when you get the cookbook, that's totally not my pie crust. I bought it. Oh, behind the scenes. There you go. So, I'm using a store-bought, roll it out, make it work pie crust. And I'm perfectly okay with that. No judgments. Do what you gotta do. Make it work, right? So I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on this cutting board because you're supposed to. I don't know. No, you really are. So it doesn't stick. Okay, so unroll this little baby. And again, remember what I said? If it doesn't turn out totally pretty, it's rustic, right? You were going for that look. You wanted it to look homemade on purpose. I'm all for that. So I rolled this little baby out, and I think it's okay. So what I'm gonna do is, because like I said, I have like nowhere near the right amount of filling, I'm not gonna put this in a pie dish. And I've never actually done this before, but I've seen it, so it can't be that complicated. If it worked for somebody else, in my opinion, it's gotta work for you too. So why not go for that? But you need to stretch your dough just a little bit. The cool thing about the dough is if you mess it up, just squish it all back together. Again, we're playing on the rustic team, right? Last minute cooking. Okay, so now I've got too much flour on that side, so I'm just gonna kind of dust that little baby off. I'm good with that. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this down here. And the flour is actually gonna make more juice. Remember I said it's gonna help make your apple pie gravy? That's what flour is gonna do, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to fill it up with my filling. Just like so. Hopefully you guys can see this good enough. All right, I'm gonna move this little baby over so y'all can kind of see. Tray places. Okay, so I'm just gonna see if I can't kind of fold this up and make kind of like a little pocket, like a little pie bowl full of yummy cinnamon sugar apples. That's what we're going for. And I'm just kind of squishing the little edges together, because technically you've got to cut holes in there so that your filling kind of breathes and it steams and it doesn't like explode in the oven anyway if you're making a real pie. So in my opinion, that just serves as a great big giant hole that we cut to let it steam out, right? So yes, I'm all for that. To me that looks pretty good. So now what I'm gonna do is, and you can kind of find in there your kind of couple pretty little apple slices and put that one on top. So it doesn't look like you cheated too terribly bad, right? Okay, so I kind of am pretty happy with that. I'm gonna let y'all look at that for just a second while I grab some butter real fast. So, okay, now I'm gonna back this light up too, just a tad. Okay, now we leave our butter out, so it's always soft. That's perfectly okay. You don't have to keep your butter refrigerated all the time. Of course, our house is cold, so if anyone's ever been over here, it may be slightly refrigerated because I keep my house cold. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit of butter, and I like the real Kerrygold butter. I think it tastes better, and it's the salted one. It's fine. I know you're not supposed to bake with salted butter, but you know, I'm not using that much. So, and it's what I've got. We're back to that. So if you don't have everything you need, just kind of do the best you can. And I'm really kind of putting the butter on the outsides of this little pie crust because for some reason, I don't know, that kind of makes sense to me right now. We'll see if it works. Like I said, I've never really done it like this before. But I mean, it's butter. How can you go wrong, right? Can't mess it up. Use a little butter. It's fine. Okay. Now, that looks actually pretty decent to me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I might even add a little bit more cinnamon and make it pretty, I don't know. And I might add a little bit more sugar on the crust. Okay. We'll see if it works. So what I'm going to do is bake it at 425. Now, I bake my apple pie at 425 anyway. Because it's smaller, I'm not necessarily going to bake it as long. I'm just going to watch it. So I'm going to say 30 minutes. I'm going to look and see how it's doing. If my crust seems like it's getting too done and kind of starting to burn a little bit, I'm going to put a piece of tin foil over it, just kind of tint it, pretty much just loosely lay it on top, and then that'll keep my crust from overdoing. And that's something that you can do anyway on any pie, whether it's, you know, in a pie plate or not. So something just to kind of, when your crust looks like it's already ready and your filling's really just not yet, then put a little tin foil either around the crust if it's like a pecan pie or a pumpkin pie or something, or you can tint it over the whole thing, and that works too. So I'm going to throw it in there 425 for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to check it. How do I know if it's ready? My apples will be done. It'll look, you know, like it's supposed to look inside the apple pie. They'll be super tender. Everything will be bubbling and gooey and all that kind of good stuff. Don't cut into it right away. Let it sit there. This is actually going to sit on the counter overnight, so we'll have it tomorrow. But yeah, and then when letting it rest makes the flour and everything, all your apple pie gravy, kind of make it thick and yummy and super gooey and super yummy. So I'll post pictures and let y'all know if that worked or not. So anyway, Merry Christmas, and I will talk to y'all in a few days. Thanks, guys. Bye.